Hi, my name is Stephen Murray, and this is the Knoll, an online gathering place for the people of Oak Knoll Lutheran Church and a place to share our community stories. As Vicar Bryce prepares for his first calling, he sat down with me and he reflected on some of his time in seminary in San Francisco. He asked the question, what is church? And some of his experiences point to the fact that church is about community, not about a physical building.
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm going to tell a little story of my seminary experience, actually, just a little bit of it, and some of the reasons why I went to Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary in Berkeley, California. I was raised in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and had some connections with mentors that went to PLTS, and long story short, kind of desired to kind of get outside my comfort zone a little bit from the upper Midwest that I'd grown up in, and that is and always will be home. Kind of some things that drew me to PLTS was that it put an emphasis on both Lutheran and non-Lutheran experiences of theology, of ministry, of congregational parish ministry, and it also provided some unique contextual education experiences. I won't get into all of those. I'll just kind of focus on one in particular that was called San Francisco Night Ministry. And so it's not an official congregation necessarily. It's more of a nonprofit. It is a nonprofit based in San Francisco. And it was started by just a local parish pastor one year that started to do night walks around the neighborhoods of San Francisco, specifically the Tenderloin neighborhood, which is one of the more poor neighborhoods in the city. And so this kind of gained some steam, and some other pastors joined him, and it kind of turned into a coalition of a ministry that has existed a number of decades now at this point. And so now its two main ministries is these night walks that it continues to do, and I have classmates that have done clinical pastoral education with San Francisco Night Ministry, which is a chaplaincy requirement for those going through the seminary process, which usually takes place in a hospital setting, but you can also do these night walks. And there's also a suicide prevention hotline that some of these students will also be a spiritual care presence. And then the second piece to this that I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about is Open Cathedral, which is one of their main core ministries, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's an open cathedral. It's not in a cathedral, but it's a worshiping space that takes place either at one of the metro train stations in San Francisco, or it takes place in the Tenderloin neighborhood of San Francisco. And so one of my contextual education experiences was being a part of this open cathedral time. And there's Pastor Monica that is a pastor at a local Hispanic congregation, but then she also, following that on Sundays, does these open cathedral services. And so she prepares two sermons for this time, which I think one is plenty, but it was really just incredible to kind of see how this goes down, because they're two very different congregations, which means two very different sermons that she prepares. And so I would join and sometimes lead parts of the worship, sometimes just be a part of the worshiping community. But the interesting thing about this open cathedral experience is that it is recognized by the Synod, which is kind of the governing body of the local congregations of the ELCA, as an authorized worshiping community, which is kind of a fancy church term, meaning that they're recognized as a legit church, just as any of the other congregation bodies in the Synod would be. They would have just as much legit standing as any other church with a building would be, except the only difference is that they're outside and that the majority of their parishioners are people that are living on the street or in a variety of different life circumstances. And kind of this experience of worshiping with them, of being with them over the course of just a semester that I was with them, it kind of got me thinking of what is church? Is it a building? Sometimes yes. And sometimes we need buildings, but sometimes we also need spaces where we can come as we are. This isn't a congregation that necessarily has an investment in things like capital campaigns for their building, because that's not who they are. They're a worshiping community whose mission is so clear. That's one of the other things that really struck me over the course of this semester, is that they didn't necessarily need to post their mission on their websites, because lots of their parishioners don't necessarily have internet access. But their mission is so clear because based off of what you see, their mission is to minister to those that also need to hear the gospel, to those that are in very dire situations. I mean, you think of how many times our scripture texts, our preaching texts are based off of Jesus ministering to those living on the street. I mean, my time worshiping with them was, I think, not necessarily even one of the most Christ-like experiences, but one of the most scriptural, I think, experiences that I've been a part of, and seen not just what faith has to do for the individual, but what does faith have to do for the gathered body here. It's a group of people, a body of people that are gathered because they have an intrinsic desire to be a part of something greater than themselves, even when these are people living in very dire circumstances. These are people that need to hear the gospel, and people that have a connection and a hope greater than themselves, greater than whatever it is that they're experiencing. I also think, I mean, you hear lots of things about San Francisco, maybe in the news or media, about being a poor city or about there being lots of homelessness or drug addiction, drug abuse. And of course, those things exist there. It exists in cities across the United States. But you don't always hear about the church's relationship in this and the church living out this kind of ministry. And I just think to the future of what does it mean to be a church in a building? What does it mean to be a church outside of a building? I think we need both of these expressions, and this kind of experience got me thinking about, what does it mean for me as a clergy person working in a church that has a building? How are we called to be in relationship with these kinds of ministries, or what does it also mean to do ministry in a very different context, but also living out of a sense of scriptural call to those that Jesus associated with? And so that kind of constant reminder influences so much of my ministry as I imagine this internship experience here at Oak Knoll, but also going forward into a first call ministries like this that continue to inspire and influence what I desire for the church to be right now, but also in the days, weeks, and months and years to come, and what is an unknown future as always. Yeah, but thanks for listening.
The Knoll is a production of Oak Knoll Lutheran Church in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Music performed by Matt Serrar and produced by me, Stephen Murray. If you would like to learn more about Oak Knoll Lutheran Church, please visit us on the web at oklutheran.org or check out the live stream of our Sunday worship on YouTube every week at 9:30 Central. If you would like to share your story as part of the Knoll podcast, you can find information on how to get involved on our website. Thanks for listening, and God bless.